This tutorial is designed to give you an idea of how to utilize the online course contents to shape your Flex course or blended lesson in a Flex 50 or Flex 100 class. What you're looking at now is Module 4 from Medical Terminology built in an Angel course shell. See, it's very similar to most online courses where you have the objectives and assignments and then multiple content pages along with several assessments. This is Module 4, so we have the mid-quarter survey, and then there's a live classroom component. I'm going to walk you through the steps in identifying how long each of these might take, why you might want to use these course elements or add your own, and then walk through how you might be able to blend the lesson by putting some of these elements in your on-campus class session and then leaving some online. In this next screen here, you see how I have taken out each one of the activities and put them over here in this left column, and then used the resources from the Flex Instruction Angel training course to separate how much time each activity will take. This is an activity that you'll want to do each week to help you understand where your students are going to spend their time in the course, and then how you can distribute those hours between the on-campus class session and then the online environment. Uh, these are going to be pieces that, in terms of your introduction and overview, and then the different content elements, you're going to need to make those decisions based on your own subject matter expertise of the area, time that you know that the students are going to spend on them. With an understanding of medical terminology, I know that students are going to spend a substantive amount of time memorizing, making flashcards for keywords, word parts, and abbreviations. So I've allotted a considerable amount of time, 2.5 hours for this piece, and then another 2 hours for making flashcards, because this is an activity that's really valuable for them. It could be written flashcards, could be online flashcards, but I'm outlining every activity that I expect the students to be able to accomplish during the week. These are things I can share with them. I can share with them how long I think that they'll spend on them, and that can be really valuable. It will also help you shape your lesson. So let's take a look at how you could utilize these different activities and separate them into your blended course. So this page is a lot more detailed. So we're working from the exact same lesson. I have all of the same activities listed here on the left-hand side. I have the time component listed here in the second column. And then I have several other headings and columns that are going to be beneficial for you in teaching a flex class. So I have separated these out into online activities, in-class activities, and then study and reflection, because we know that students are not always spending time doing something in an actual environment, that they need that study and reflection time to really learn and to remember the information, to relate it to their own activities, to their own job, to other classes, so that then they can remember that information later on in their lives. So, and then I have split out the time and put some notes here if you're teaching Flex 100 or Flex 50. So let's take a look at Flex 100, because we know Flex 100 has the normal amount of course hours, meaning if it's a 4 credit class, you're going to spend 4 hours on campus. So we have that full time on campus. How are we going to split it up? Well, we might take the first 30 minutes of class, do an introduction of the module, provide an overview, little mini lecture on the cardiovascular system. These are just some notes and some time. So notice the entire time over here in this column is spent in class, and then I use those minutes here. I'm going to go down Flex 100, and then we'll come over and show the differences for Flex 50. Reading the chapter, I want the student to do that outside of class. I might also want to indicate, do I want them to read it before the class session or after the class session? In this case, it might be helpful to post an announcement in the online course letting them know it would be beneficial for them to review these pages. Medical terminology, just from a subject matter standpoint, is difficult to read and really truly remember everything until you start to do some practice, but I might want to just give students a heads up on that. Key terms, word parts, and abbreviations, I'm going to allow for 30 minutes of this 2.5 hour time block for some pronunciation practice to help the students know how to pronounce those words. So even though this is going to require a total of 2.5 hours of the student's time throughout the week, we're only going to spend 30 minutes in class on it. This is and notice that I have this marked in class as well as study and reflection time. These two pieces here for 15 minutes, these are different videos. Actually, there's three of them here, an animation for the student to watch. I want them to do all of them online. For this animation blood flow here, though, I am going to allow for additional time because I want to watch this animation blood video on campus and then have a discussion about it because it's an important topic I want to make sure that the students grasp. But we want to watch that video on campus so that they have that information. Moving down into flashcards, this is an online and in-class and a study and reflection activity. It's online because there's an element in the actual online course helping them with flashcards. It's in class because I'm going to allow 30 minutes in class for them to start to write down cards, start to study cards that they've already made, and then allow for them to also have that study and reflection time at home. Again, it's a total of 2 hours of work for the week, but we're going to do some of that in class. There's also a discussion forum where they're going to do part of it online and they're going to do part of it in class. So I want that initial post to come online prior to class. So I'll set up my calendar so that the due date for that initial post comes prior to my class. So if my class is on Wednesday, I'm going to have that initial post due by Tuesday night at midnight so that they have to make that initial post, which for me as the instructor, I know now that they have read the information, have some understanding of what pathology of the cardiovascular system is dealing with, and then I can put that up on the board through the overhead projector on the campus, and then we can have a discussion about it there. But I'm only going to spend 30 minutes of it in class time. The remaining aspects of that discussion are going to be 2 hours. The grade for that will still take place in the online course environment, but I'll utilize both their participation in the online environment as well as in class to determine what their score will be for the week. Module 4 quiz and audio quiz are both about 30 minutes because it's 25 questions, one question apiece. That happens online. This happens to be an online plus course, so within the gradebook is a live classroom element that actually has a graded component. Now, because Online Plus faculty have the ability to decide how students receive this for attending and participating in their live classroom, I have the ability to decide how students are going to receive these points for participating in my on-campus classroom session. We're going to do some case studies because in the medical terminology textbook, there are some great case studies, and this is an awesome opportunity for group work. Also encourages students to attend class, knowing that they're going to get points for the work and the participation that they're doing in class. And then they'll do some case study work, and then I'll ask them some questions, and then they can post that response in the online course underneath the live classroom, and that's how their score will be achieved. Finally, we have about 30 minutes for some spelling practice. Medical terminology spelling is very, very important, and so we want students to have an opportunity to practice that in a live environment if we can. So we're going to spend 30 minutes into class, do some wrap up, a very non-graded summary type of activity. So where they'll be doing some work, handing it over to me, I'll be looking at it, but it's non-graded in the gradebook. So that was Flex 100. Now let's take a look at how we might alter that for Flex 50, because now instead of the 4 hours in class, we only have 2 hours in class. Flex 50 is half the number of hours of on-campus time, but the total number of activity hours doesn't change because remember, we're trying to meet that 4 credit hour requirement. So let's take a look here at how these activities change. Previously, we were doing 30 minutes of overview, now maybe a 15-minute overview, and then post some additional video clips on pieces that I want the students to understand in the online environment. Instead of spending 30 minutes of in-class time on pronunciation practice, we're going to do 15, where then now they will do that other amount of time in this big chunk of hours here. They'll do the remaining of that on their own. We will change how this video is displayed. I will not provide a big discussion opportunity in class, but we will mention it as an important element to review online. Same thing with the flashcards, definitely allowing them an opportunity to ask questions about best practices for flashcards, share their ideas and things, but just a brief mention of it and no in-class work time on this. I want to spend the time in class focusing on those areas that really get them applying their knowledge and really applying what it is that they have learned so that they can remember it later on. We'll spend about 15 minutes in class doing some discussion where still the initial post is due online prior to class, but then after class, I'm going to have them post a summary of the discussion and what it is that they learned in the classroom session based on this discussion and other discussion topics that might come up. So I want them to be able to sort of that full circle of really reflecting on what that class session helped them with in relation to that pathology, the cardiovascular system. We may also see some other organic discussion happening just out of different information that may come up. So we can adjust that as we go. Looking down here at the case study work, notice that I have still devoted a big chunk of time to this. I think that case studies in this particular classroom session are really important. And so we're going to continue to work through the case studies, and that's how they're going to receive their points for the class. But they'll definitely make sure to post their responses outside of class time. With the Flex 100, I was hoping to be able to provide them the time to actually post to the Angel Shell while they were in class. And then we'll spend about 15 minutes at the end of class wrapping things up, doing some spelling practice. So you can see how I really just went through and decreased these activities, other than the case study, by half, making sure to focus on those application activities and the group work and really those touch points that we want to have happen when students are physically on campus doing that face-to-face work. Hope this helped you be able to understand that while the total amount of time that the student should be spending on work should not change, but just the amount of live time that we have with them is going to change.